On the agenda tonight, we're going to be having a listen to Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran singing A View to a Kill. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, any excuse to take a look at a Bond theme, being a fan of James Bond myself, especially the Daniel Craig era of Bond movies, but also the older ones. This particular song is one that I know really well, but when listening to it, especially with my ears as they've developed being a musician and doing analysis videos, all that kind of stuff, I always knew that this sounded a little bit out of tune, or Simon Le Bon's voice sounded like it wasn't quite hitting notes as accurately as I was used to. I thought we'd spend a bit of time just looking at the vocal. I have isolated it, run it through the pitch monitoring software so that we can see the notes that Simon's hitting, but also we can explore the idea of pitch accuracy and why do some notes sound like they're out of tune and some sound like they're in tune, given that everybody listening to songs, we don't have a pitch monitoring software app, for example, running through our head showing us whether it's in tune or not in tune. So how can we hear the difference? One thing that I won't be able to explain in this video is what was going on in the music video for this particular song, where they're on the Eiffel Tower and they've got a camera that's flying around. I don't know what was going on, but obviously it was mixed in with footage from the movie when they're on the Eiffel Tower and the blimp thing explodes. But anyway, we will jump into this and we'll have the isolated vocal quite prominent, and we can see Simon's voice on the screen and we'll see what's going on. Let's have a listen.
Meeting you with a view to a kill.
So immediately, what we've got here, and you'll notice this throughout the performance, we are sharp. And as I zoom in, let's get this on screen, you can see how much sharp we are. So we're almost, between these lines is 100 cents. So the note that we're expecting to hear, given that the backing is always going to be tuned to 440 hertz, that is standard tuning, that's what it's referred to as. So this line is where we're expecting to hear the note. And again, why do we expect to hear the note there? It's because in our lives, it's been standard tuning since 1957, I think. The 440 hertz, and that's A440. So a particular note is set at a particular frequency, and that is standard. So it means that all of the songs we're used to hearing are more often than not tuned to that particular point. So all of the notes in relation to that point, we've now stored. We don't know that we've stored them, but we've got used to this tuning. Whether you like it or not, the ear is expecting to hear it. When I say on the line, close to this line, because we also expect to hear expression in the voice, because we are humans and we're listening to a human singing. So when it doesn't have expression and it is directly over this line, we can tell that something's up, that something's happened to this voice that's made it more like a computer voice than an actual human singing. Now this is where we stay sharp here, and we do kind of touch down on the line, but we're maintaining a note that is above where we're expecting to hear it. Now, if I move up here, look at the way that Simon hits this C4. So it means that he's now where we expect his voice to be. Therefore, our brains have calculated and our ears have calculated that the first part must have been wrong, or must have not been where it should have been, because now we are where we should have been. If this had been sharp by exactly the same amount, then our ears and our brains wouldn't have been able to figure it out as clearly. But it's really impressive when you think about it, the information that our brains and our ears are taking in, and it's doing constant calculations as to whether what we're hearing is what we should be hearing. And everybody listening to this, not everyone has a knowledge of scales and the notes that should be being hit. People don't know, equal temperament and the frequencies that should be, hit with particular keys. But it's something that we naturally have a knowledge of. I won't start talking about that because that'll be a video that goes on for probably a lifetime, trying to get to the bottom of how we know all this stuff instinctively. But let's listen on.
Places, feel the chill.
And again here, just where we ended that line, we're actually quite accurate now to 440 hertz.
Nightfall covers me.
And now, another thing that we will do naturally is store intervals. And intervals are the spaces between these lines. So, in this particular case, when Simon's going up to the C4, he was flat, slightly flat of the C4, and then we were flat, but we then went a little bit sharp at the end, right at the top here. So this is where we get such a variation in pitch that the ear picks this up. And the fact that we've now gone sharp highlights the fact that we were flat before. And it gives it an uneasy feeling. But I like this sound. This is one of those songs that, for me, it doesn't bother me at all that it's slightly flat, slightly sharp, because it's just a unique song. And it's a unique vocal. Try to copy this. It would be pretty much impossible. I'd say probably impossible to plot your vocal lines where Simon's vocal lines are, because of the fact that he's singing with all of this variation. Have a listen again.
But the plans I'm making.
Again, but pushing it sharp. The plans I'm making. Oh no, it was. Exactly. I'm going to have to move it up so you can see it. Here we go. Making. So you can see how we're on the note and then there's a little wobble of the voice in pitch, but it isn't a held note. So this is why here, because we're now on these lines, which is what we're expecting to hear, it makes the other bits stick out more. These parts here, saying about being flat, being sharp. I would rather there were more songs like this than what we have at the moment, where everyone's chasing perfection, where perfection doesn't exist, and we're getting vocals that are stuck to these lines. I would rather a vocalist just sang with their voice, and it's just their voice, and you can decide whether you like it or you don't like it, but at least you would get unique vocal performances because you're hearing that person's voice and the way that they approach hitting pitches, or just the way that they do hit pitches, rather than everyone having their own unique way of doing it and then putting it through something that's going to calibrate it to 440 hertz, which is going to be auto-tune and pitch correction. So this is the point, that doing the latter, every voice is now the same. You don't get the unique expression or pitch accuracy of each vocalist. So you would never hear a performance like this because it wouldn't exist, because it would have all been stuck to these lines. When you're talking about a change in pitch, we are talking about these subtle variations that give you the expression of the singer. And yeah, this uneasy sound is all part of it.
Oversee.
And there, the C starting on the note, pushing sharp.
Could it be the whole of opening wide?
And then again, bang on here, D sharp 4.
A sacred wine, a mist.
And here, now we're slightly flat of the notes. So again, when I'm talking about intervals, we've been storing all of these notes, even though you don't know that you are storing them. So it means that we've been used to it being quite a lot sharp. And now we're at a little bit flat. So this is why it almost, I don't know, piques your interest, or at least your ear says, oh, there's something that's a little bit not quite right here. And I mean, when you're analyzing like this and we're looking at, finite pitches and looking at definite frequencies of where the note sat compared to 440 hertz, obviously you know, we don't have this in our heads. So when we're looking at it, we can see it very clearly. But when you're listening to it, this is where you might feel like it sounds a bit uneasy. But for me, that's part of the attraction of this song and the vocal performance.
Escaping inside, weekends why until we dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire.
And now for the chorus, we're a lot more accurate pitch-wise. It's a double-tracked vocal, so that means that Simon sang it twice, and we've got another mix of his voice in there, and we've got this delay kicking off as well, which I think the pitch monitoring software is picking up those harmonic frequencies up at the top. So those aren't notes that are being hit here. It's just part of the artifacts and the isolated vocal. But let's listen on.
To fatal sounds of broken dreams, dance into the fire.
And again, have a look at the accuracy here of that A sharp 4. That held note was, I mean, so spot on. It's obviously not going to be right on the line. It's just below the line, but it just sounds spot on. So let's listen on.
That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire.
And because I'm zoomed in, we're not seeing the notes as they happen. But again, this held note with vibrato, really accurate. So the chorus is just, you know, pretty much spot on for that whole vocal. But I mean, when we zoom out, it does look like it's absolutely spot on, but we know that, you know, it's not quite on the line because it is a natural vocal. So then when we go back to the verse, now we've stored all of these intervals in our heads. So if anything now misses the intervals, it's going to stand out a bit more.
Choice for you is the view to a kill.
And again, I think it's part of just the verse, the way that it's sung, because Simon in the chorus is effectively belting in chest voice. So when he's hitting these notes, he's kind of leaning into it, whereas we have this more conversational approach in the verse, and you can hear the way that he's almost not worried about hitting the notes. It's more about, you know, telling that story.
Choice for you.
Oh, you know, so it's all kind of in that place.
Is the view to a kill.
Here's a view. So that, yeah, we're not going, here's a view to a kill. You know, it isn't doing that. Because if you did it like that, it just sounds stupid.
Between the shades, assassination, standing still.
Standing still. And there's a tiny wobble of vibrato there again.
First crystal tears fall of snowflakes on your body.
And again, I mean, we're now pushing it sharp. But this is something that, interestingly, we had in the verse. Simon's voice is so consistent that he naturally does this. It's just part of his voice, which is great. And that's what, you know, art is all about, being unique.
First time in years to drench your skin with lover's rosy stain. A chance to find the phoenix for the flame. Again,
Really good example here of being flat of the F sharp 4 and then sharp of the D sharp 4. Your ear will know that we were flat and then we were sharp, so that there's a indiscrepancy between our intervals. Again, you won't know that you know the intervals, but if I played a scale to you, like if I played you your national anthem and I put in a note that wasn't the right interval, you would know straight away that that isn't the right note there. But how do you know that? Because we've you don't know you know it, but we have all of the intervals stored in our heads. I know that a lot of people watch from the USA, so if I went na 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 like that, you'd say, oh, well, hang on, that last note, na, 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 na. It should have gone there, not na. But how do you know that? How do you know that I've done a different interval? We just know. We have this stored in our head. It's very clever. It's this kind of thing. So it's that process that is allowing us to decide what is accurate pitch-wise to our ears and what isn't, because we're expecting to hear a note that's related to all of the other intervals going on with the instrumentation in the background. So yeah, I mean, it's really amazing to think of the detail in which we hear sound, that we can tell when there's a wrong note literally as soon as it happens. And you think, well, how do we know that? Anyway, let's continue.
A chance to die, but can we dance into the fire? That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire.
And we can see now, when we're up at this G sharp 4, we're pushing up towards the top end of the male tenor range. So when Simon's leaning into his voice, it might be the case that he's just more accurate because he's, maybe leaning on his diaphragm a bit more and hitting these notes with more air, but more authority as well. There's not as much subtlety in the chorus, but that's what you want. The chorus is the top of the mountain. It's the crescendo, of the song. So you want to be able to hit those notes. You have to get back to that note. If you went, dance into the fire, if you didn't quite make it, then it's obviously going to sound really bad. But, the intervals here are just solid in this chorus.
To fatal sounds of broken dreams, dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire. When all we see is the view to a kill.
And, interestingly there, at the end, the A sharp 4, we're talking about, male tenor range, we've seen it before, is at the A4, 440 hertz, if you're paying attention. But that A4, top end of the male tenor range, we're at an A sharp 4 here. So Simon's still singing this in chest voice, but pushing up and above the top end of that male tenor range. So, these are high notes for a guy to sing, and he's hitting these bang on. He goes back down to the G sharp 4. But importantly as well, with the previous chorus, they haven't just copied and pasted a chorus, which is something that happens, quite a lot. He's sung this twice, so this is a different version of the chorus than he did the first time. So it is very much, a whole vocal performance of the song. And maybe it was the case that they did, one take or 2 takes, and that was it for the song. And I think it's great that it's just left as it was for probably, the first vocal take. But thank you guys for requesting this song for me to take a look at. As always, let me know what you guys think. And if you have any other songs that make you feel uneasy, or maybe you're not sure what's going on with the tuning, we can explore it in a video. We can point out exactly what's going on, and more importantly, why you might be getting this uneasy feeling listening to a particular song. So yes, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and keep those suggestions coming in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Rock!